Within 6 years, Rovers had been relegated and then spent the best part of a quarter of a century giving the people of Blackburn little to cheer about. They floated in and out of the lower divisions while the fans stayed away in droves. With money tight, what football talent did arrive was mediocre. By the time Jack Walker was installed as senior vice president, Rovers were on the floor of the second division. If history was to repeat itself, Uncle Jack and his millions needed someone as brave and respected as Bob Crompton. Folklore says that if you were born in the East End of post-war Glasgow, you either worked in the shipyards of the Clyde or became a footballer, and in Glasgow, football is Rangers or Celtic. It was from this robust working-class city, which divides its footballing support down sectarian lines, that Kenny Dalglish would emerge as one of the world's finest players. In the summer of 1966, with the success of the England World Cup team still dominating the news, the young Dalglish put on the jersey of a professional club for the first time. With hindsight, there's some irony in the choice of club, Liverpool, but his first introduction to the North West came to nothing, and the week's trial ended without a signing. Liverpool's heady days, though, were yet to come. For now, it was the turn of Celtic, Britain's first winners of the European Cup. 2 months after that famous night in Lisbon, Dalglish arrived at Parkhead.
When you get to meet a kid at first when he's that age, you sort of keep him in your mind. And I remember there was a great friend of mine, John Corraine, that played for Celtic with me. He's dead now, God rest him. And I used to phone him, or he would phone me after Celtic games on the Saturday evening or the Sunday morning and talk about Celtic. I remember one game Celtic had beaten Partick Thistle 4-0 at Firhill, and I think Kenny made his debut. And John phoned me that Saturday night, couldn't phone me quick enough. He says, Pat, he says, I've just seen the white Pelly. That was his exact words to me, the white Pelly, and he wasn't far wrong.
Throughout his 10 years at Parkhead, Dalglish collected enough silverware to make his own Aladdin's Cave. 5 Scottish Championships, 4 Scottish Cups, 1 Scottish League Cup. Where others failed, Dalglish could capitalise.
1-2, Dalglish still there. Great save, Wilson. Still Cannondale. Dean's missing. McNamara. Well, this is like a rifle range and it's gone home. Dalglish.
And when he retired from the national side, he'd set another record with 102 caps. He went out in style.
Dalglish makes it 3-1 and equalled the Scottish scoring record.
The triumphs continued at Anfield, where he arrived in 1977. By the time he stunned the football world with his resignation as manager some 14 years later, he'd won 8 league championships, 3 European Cups, 4 League Cups and 2 FA Cups. But he'd also had enough. 3 times in his career, Kenny Dalglish played witness to tragedies which had a profound impact on the country. In 1971, 66 people died at Ibrox on Stairway 13 as Rangers played Celtic. Dalglish, who was just 19, had been with the Parkhead team. On the night Liverpool decided to make Dalglish their new manager, the European Cup final against Juventus turned to disaster, as 39 fans, mainly Italian, died. And then there was Hillsborough. The deaths of 95 people brought Liverpool to its knees and produced extraordinary scenes of communal grieving. Anfield became a shrine, and Dalglish was quoted as saying it was the saddest and most beautiful sight he'd ever seen. Hillsborough also revealed an insight into his character that football had never been able to show. As the public face of Liverpool, Dalglish spent weeks in private, helping to counsel the injured, the players and the relatives. Trevor Hicks lost 2 daughters in the Leppings Lane crush.
Kenny Dalglish was very helpful indeed, quite different to the dour Scotsman image that most people see of him. Both he and Marina, his wife, spent many hours in the immediate aftermath counselling people, and obviously anything that the families were asking for, they bent over backwards to try and accommodate. You only have to see photographs of him in the few days afterwards to see the strain that was on his face. Perhaps it was, the last straw.
When Dalglish's time at Anfield had run out, his explanation was straightforward, but the reasoning behind it has been debated ever since.
As I said before, it's the first time I made a decision that's been beneficial to, more beneficial to Kenny Dalglish than Liverpool Football Club. or anybody else connected, but I just felt that I'd gone far enough, and I didn't think that I could delay any longer. I thought if it was delayed much longer, it certainly would have been beneficial to me, and if it's not beneficial to me, I don't know how it could have been beneficial to the club.
The 16th hole at Hillside Golf Course in Southport is regarded as one of the most deceptive on the par 72 round. In the summer of 1991, as Dalglish enjoyed his self-imposed exile from soccer, he went into Hillside's record books, a hole-in-one, 197 yards from tee to flag with a 5-iron. The relaxed lifestyle continued for 7 months, and it was in the millionaire's playground of Monaco that Jack Walker found his man. Walker's offer would prove to be Dalglish's biggest gamble, a second-division club, a return to management, a rich man with ambitions that a lot in the game scoffed at.
Football's dustbins are littered with managers who had millions of pounds to spend and who have failed. We only have to look at the likes of Gordon Lee, Tommy Docherty, Graham Souness, Malcolm Allison. There are dozens of football managers who spent millions of pounds and failed.
Although the press was on the scent of a big story, few at the club knew what to expect. Even the caretaker manager had been left in the dark.
I always thought that there was something happening in the background. Nobody said anything at the club, but the longer it's gone, I don't think it's done me any favours. I think if they were going to make me manager, they would have done it earlier.
Then, in the same manner that he had left Anfield, Dalglish arrived at Ewood with a news conference, and his aim was a place in the Premier League.
There's one thing you can be assured of: we're going to give it the best shot we've got. It's not to say that it's going to be we can guarantee anything. All we can guarantee is we'll give 100%. And if we're good enough, that'll come this year. If not, we may have to be patient and wait a little bit longer.
By the end of the season, Blackburn were in the playoffs for a place in the Premier League. At home, they faced Derby. Two goals in 5 minutes settled the night. The second leg saw Blackburn lose, but on aggregate they'd done enough and were through to the final at Wembley against Leicester.
Mike Newell against Carl Muggleton. They're on the way!
Blackburn held onto that lead and in the process became one of the founding members of the Premier League.
Just go with a minute. I had a load of money, I have no money left.
His bank manager might have agreed with that, up to a point. In the 8 months that Dalglish had been in charge, Rovers had been pretty active on the transfer market. £5.2 million had left their account to buy the likes of Mike Newell from Everton, Roy Wegerle from Queen's Park Rangers, and Colin Hendry, who returned to Ewood from Manchester City after a 2-year absence. The summer of 1992 saw Dalglish out with Uncle Jack's chequebook again. He bought Alan Shearer from Southampton for a then British record of £3.3 million. Shearer's England career was in its infancy, but sharpness like this had left Dalglish in no doubt about the real worth of the player. Shearer had scored 22 goals in 25 matches by Christmas 1992, but the Boxing Day game against Leeds United left him with a knee injury which kept him out for the rest of the season. Jack Walker's attentions now turned to the ground. Over 3 seasons, the stadium would be transformed into one of the finest in the country. As Rovers finished 4th in the league, the work continued around them. Ewood Park was sporting a new look. So was the team. Tim Flowers became the world's most expensive keeper after leaving Southampton for £2.4 million. He joined Paul Warhurst and David Batty in the lineup. Ewood Park hadn't seen quality like this for decades. In 2 years, average attendances went from 8 to 16,000. Jack Walker's plan was paying dividends.
Players want to go to Blackburn, not because it's Blackburn Rovers and not because it's Jack Walker waving money under their noses. They want to go because it's Kenny Dalglish. They genuinely want to work with Kenny Dalglish. And time again, you know that players are going there because of Dalglish, and it's that loyalty which he commands, which I think has been one of the major aspects of making him so successful.
In the title race with Manchester United, Rovers had been 16 points behind at one stage, but by the end of last season they were biting at their heels. They finished second, but achieved a first. Never before had Rovers been in European competition. The fans relished the prospect.
Well, for 3 seasons, it's been a dream come true. A dream come true, beyond our wildest dreams.
It's going to be brilliant. I mean, teams like, I don't know, Inter Milan and that coming here, it'd be unbelievable if they come.
The arrival of Chris Sutton in July last year left football breathless. The most expensive feat in British football had cost Rovers £5 million, and they brought Jack Walker's bill to £27 million for 27 players in 3 seasons.
I think Jack Walker is every fan's dream. Every fan standing on the terraces dreams that one day they'll win the lottery, they'll win the pools, they'll win something, and they can spend all their money on what they love, which is their club, and sit in the chairman's box. I don't believe there is a sane fan from one end of Britain to the other, maybe from one end of Europe to the other, who does not, in their heart of hearts, want to be Jack Walker.
With the work on the ground progressing, the stage was set for the next phase in the grand plan. When the nation took to gambling in a huge way, it seemed only natural for the first multi-millionaire of the lottery to live in Blackburn. And 3 times now the big "it could be you" finger has prodded the town. Most people say a win won't affect their lives, but when the same sort of luck surrounds a football club, the neighbours tend to notice the changes. Ewood Park is the stadium that Jack built. £12 million, 3 years of construction, and 30,000 seats later, it's emerged as a ground fit for the 21st century.
I think that Blackburn Rovers' success and the town success go together. You say Blackburn, and people automatically say Blackburn Rovers, don't they?
There's only one achievement, walking along, singing a song, walking in a sweet wonderland. Yeah!
No, it's boosting the town. It's sort of showing a good image of Blackburn, really. The precinct's getting done up now, so hopefully it should bring some trade in.
I think there were better players at Sexters. Not being manic. Thanks, love. I think there were better players at Sexters, yeah.
I think the people have got a pride in the team, and you can see that when people are walking around the shopping centre wearing the shirts.
It's a fantastic team what they have now. Really great team. Championship team, this. That's what it is.
The European campaign was short-lived. A goal apiece from the SAS pairing of Sutton and Shearer, still not enough to outfox the Swedish underdogs from Trelleborgs. But now there's next season, and the hope is, through Flowers and his colleagues, Blackburn's profile will blossom not just on the pitches, but also in business.
We have 1 or 2 people in our organisation that actually trade with people abroad, and we were discussing last night. He's just come back from America, and he was saying that, you know, everybody's saying, oh, how well Blackburn are doing, and, you know, so it's, you know, we have spread far and wide, so obviously it's bound to be good for us, and hopefully it'll carry on.
Now that they're in Europe, I think there are several things that happen. The most important, which of course is they get into the European League. That is a guaranteed 5 to 8 million in terms of revenues. That flow of income will mean that they have a new stage, a new capabilities to spend, and a new stage to show off their abilities. And frankly, it transforms them from being a significant, a major British club to being a major European club.
Hefty transfer fees are often described as millstones around the neck of the coveted player in question, a good excuse when he struggles to deliver. No excuses were necessary when Sutton got Blackburn's title-winning season off to the best of starts. The £5 million man scored a hat-trick in his 3rd game, Coventry City, the luckless victims. And if Sutton wasn't scoring hat-tricks, Shearer was. This one in November not only meant victory over Queen's Park Rangers, it also took Rovers to the top of the Premiership, a position from which they were not to be shifted. And not even the sending off of Tim Flowers against Leeds could stop their progress. Rovers played with 10 men for 88 minutes and captured a point in a 1-1 draw. When you have that combination of class and character, you have, as football managers say, a bit of a chance.
The people have grown in numbers and strength, and have grown in their support, and they've really got behind the lads, and they've given the lads a bit of confidence, and I think that's reflected in the performances that they've put on. So it works hand in hand. A good support helps the team,
and we're no different from anyone else, and they've helped the players when they've needed it.
Over the last financial year, the ground capacity here at Ewood has been just 15,000 in a stadium designed for 30,000. That goes some way towards explaining last year's trading loss of £1 million. Compare that to Manchester United's profit of £11 million over the first 6 months of this season.
One of the things that's striking of Blackburn Rovers, for example, in comparison to United, is their accounts always look a bit thin because they don't put the value of their players on the accounts. Now, my guess is that every Blackburn player that they've bought in recent years is actually appreciated in value enormously. Shearer they bought for £3 million. If you were to put him in the accounts, you'd have to put him in at least £10 million. So that's a threefold increase in his value. Even Sutton, my guess is on the basis of his performance this year, on the basis of what his obvious potential is with being young, I would guess he's valued at least £8 million. So from an investment of roughly £8 million in two players, my guess is they'd have a book value of £20 million. So that's not a bad return for an investment.
A lot of people believed Jack Walker was throwing good money after bad in his visionary endeavours to buy success. But he's proved them wrong, and in true Roy of the Rovers style, he's beaten the best to ensure his club's name will remain immortal in history. And what about protecting Rovers' success now that you're in the position that you are in? Big clubs in Europe are supposed to be sniffing around some of your top players, and maybe you'll be wanting to buy them.
Well, maybe, but as far as I'm concerned, there's nobody. They're not for sale. So we've only just got our club together. If you think about it, we've had to, in 3 years, we've done what other clubs have taken 10 to 20 years to do. We've had to go from nothing to where we are.
That extra programme means that our schedule is now running approximately half an hour later than advertised.